Hi, this is Ashishar Bidekar and welcome to my podcast, The ARB Show. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guests, Sagar and Hrishikesh. They are the co-founders of CarIQ. CarIQ is India's first connected car platform for the aftermarket. The idea is basically to remotely manage, monitor, and interact with your vehicle. And once with CarIQ, you kind of enable it to be a smart car. Can understand its condition, review its driving, notify you of actions, etc. They are now taking a backseat from CarIQ and helping other startups in growth and project management skills. Sagar was the CEO and Rishi was the CTO at CarIQ. And this was India's first connected car platform with over 500K vehicles and users. They have kind of experimented and adopted many best practices in architecture, business processes, with different aspects like engineering, finance, support, and even production. Sagar used to look after the business side and Rishi used to look after the tech side. And they tell me that their success is a result of common love for organizational systems and productivity, which personally it's a very interesting topic and I'm sure the audience would love it as well. Welcome to the show, Sagar and Hrishikesh. Look forward to hearing your views on top 4 tips for improving personal and organizational productivity. Over to you.
Thanks, Ashish, for having us. So we had a bunch of productivity tips, especially from an organization standpoint, that we wanted to talk about. And so Rishi and I were debating how many of these tips to cover today. And we thought we'll start off small. We'll start off with around 4 things that we have seen successfully being implemented. Not only at CarIQ, we've been talking to a lot of startups, being a part of the startup ecosystem. We've been talking to a lot of startups in and around Pune, outside Pune as well. And we've seen a lot of people adopt some of these things along the way. We never had an official name for it. I think currently we are zeroing in on a name called Streamline. But again, let's hope that name sticks and we do a lot more for the startup community around this, right? We believe that productivity is not just about working harder. It may sound cliche about working smarter, but that's the problem that we've seen somehow in the startup world, right?
Yeah, everything is like a mission, and everyone is believes in dying to execute the mission to get the required result. It's we call it martyr mode, and so generally doing something smartly and systematically seems not very interesting to everyone. But unless there are systems and some kind of a operating system to run the show, it becomes very unmanageable, at least in the beginning of the show.
And also the fact that you're probably doing it during the running of your company, it's like we used to call it open heart surgery on a live patient, right? You're during the course of your working, you need to take a back foot, stop things and realign things. And I think that takes some amount of craziness and a lot of belief in the process itself, that whatever losses now you're going to take are going to work out. That's probably the reason why most people are in a martyr mode, because you can't accuse somebody of not doing anything, right? I mean, what more can you do other than
True. And as someone also mentioned, startup life is like, jumping off a cliff and then figuring out how to build a airplane or a parachute or something like that, right? So you're always on the action mode.
I tried giving the smartest answer once at a conference for the banking industry. I just said, look, you might do that with startups, but with banks, we need to be sure we have an aeroplane or a parachute in hand before we jump off the place.
That's true. That's
true. Say that on stage and everyone was like, no, we don't do that. But coming back to our topic at hand, right? So we basically wanted to add this to reduce the clutter. We wanted to follow a systematic process to bring things together. Like I said, we're just trying to call it Streamline at the moment to kind of have some name around it and build around it. But we are going to be talking about building blocks, how you can implement it. One of the things we thought was that not all organizations or not everybody in an organization might, want to become productive, right? I mean, it's a choice. So we said, can we build some sort of building blocks that individually one could adopt it and if it works for him or her, then maybe the organization at large could make it as a part of their culture. But can we at least start off with even one person saying, look, I would like to follow these 2-3 things, and will it work for me? Earlier, the difference I think is because we were founders, we could enforce this to a large extent. We could tell like we got to do this, and little bit of white hair, gray hair, both of us, we could push our ideas through. But when we are consulting others, I'm sure there will be a lot of skepticism. So we thought, let's build things that anybody could do it individually. And if they start adopting it as an organization or even as a team, then nothing like it, right? So
that's great. So I think essentially, why this is relevant is because, as you would agree, there are varied kind of personalities in a team, right? There are few who like to be individual contributors, right? And they really shine because possibly their output and their energy is very high. And they feel that, when typically you have got teams, a lot of time goes into chit chat or the social nuances, right? Which these guys really don't like. But if you kind of have a simple activity which they can do it without any problem or focused activity, that's good. At the same time, if you have a structure, and if I liked what you said that, productivity is a choice. You have to inspire people to be productive, to make their work fast so that they can have more free time. Possibly that's the only carrot you can give in a startup setting. But yeah, that's great. What would be the second technique you would like to share?
Yeah, so as a streamline, that word we should get used to. So streamline is more like a bunch of founding principles or kind of operating system of sort. And today we will be talking about a few of the important understandings or principles that we will share with you.
I would say, okay, fine. Sometimes principles sound too constricting and like some heavy burden process. But yeah, so 4 things that we want to talk
before learning.
Okay, great. So look forward to hearing about that. So let's start. What's the first tip you should like to give?
So the first is we call it POMO, which is a short form for Pomodoro technique, a well-known technique in the productivity world, and we have been following it in CarIQ very diligently. So just to give you an idea of that, Pomodoro is where you break down 25 minutes chunk of time and where you do work in complete focus. And any work that you do is number of pomos put into it. That's the unit of measurement of any work that you end up doing. Time is not very accurate measurement. Pomo tends to be more accurate because there are a bunch of rules of Pomo that we follow and achieve to a certain outcome. So Pomo is basically 25 minutes of no talking, no phone, no chatting, no scrolling, no browsing, not even eye contact with other people. You are totally into what you are doing. So it's a solo thing. It's not a meeting. Pomo can be a thinking Pomo. It can be a learning Pomo. It can be a doing Pomo as well. So you cannot email, exchange or chat. You can write and draft an email for a later, which is a doing kind of a Pomo. Pomo is a focus. Pomo has to be a deep work. It's a process. It's not the product. You just follow the process. It's not casual. It's you need a strong resolve to do that.
Again, just to build on it. So from an engineering standpoint, you're completely immersed. Some movies call it being in the zone. So yeah, you're going to get into the zone and doing. But what we found that this was equally beneficial when we applied it to the sales team. We applied it to the customer support team. And we thought like all the things that you don't like to, but if there's an irritating customer, you end up calling probably later much than earlier, right? You would tend to call easier customers first. Pomo forces you to sit there and make your calls no matter what, right? So just one of the other calls puts you in a very strong mindset. And we saw when at least personally I was applying it from a sales standpoint, it forced me to do those 45 minutes of sales calls every day to all the potential customers and account management activities. We've seen that do for customer support as well. It's been helpful. So in fact, from an engineering standpoint, we adopted it so much that instead of asking how many hours this feature is going to take, it all started be converting into POMOs because every engineer ended up adopting it. So our typical Scrum planning meeting no longer said how many days does this feature take. It would be how many POMOs does this particular feature take. And that was huge. That was different. Initially, I was not a part of it. I was part of the company, but not engineering per se. So I have to be very honest, from an outsider view, I was a little skeptical. Like, we've been measuring it in days. Then we started measuring it in hours. Before that, we used to measure this in months. Now we are measuring it in 25 minutes. Where is this going to stop? But what later on happened was, when we're talking in terms of days or hours, we are really talking about a very prolonged period of time for which everything and anything is there, right? So then you start adding, say, there's only 80% efficiency this month and things like that. That's how we started bringing down those whole inefficiencies. But these 25 minutes of POMO are pure 25 minutes of POMO. You're not doing anything else at all during that time. And that's where I thought, at least we saw that there's this whole book, right, around how do you measure how many hours does a feature take. I think the name of the book is the Mammoth Project Manager. And you could probably see that it's almost considered impossible to be able to accurately say how much time a feature is going to take. But with POMO, we felt that everything became more sensible. And some of the next two things that we're going to talk about help put that in perspective from a POMO standpoint.
Fantastic. Now, also another thing, I think what would start happening, and I'm sure you will agree, in many of these techniques, right? If in a team, kind of a high achiever or a category employee or team member starts using it, adopting it, sees benefits, then things become viral, right? So rather than a top-down approach, it kind of takes its own life, right? Wherein people say, oh, let me just also see, it kind of really helps. Well, the last thing which engineers or anyone wants to do is to do things which does not add any intellectual stimulus, right? That becomes boring, right? Typically, that's the worst thing which you want to do. So if you can make life interesting, I think that's a very good tip. So what are the other tips which you would like to share? Really keen to know more.
So let me take the next one. So there's this cow in the ditch is what we call it. Okay. So there's a popular story you get that on LinkedIn all the time about the CEO of Xerox Corporation, and one of the questions she was trying to explain how she thinks that looks at ownership and prioritization of tasks is that what do you do when you see a cow in a ditch, right? And when you get the cow out of the ditch, right? Then you cover the ditch, then discuss how this happened, right? And depending on your right or left minded stimuli, either people start arguing what is the cow doing in the ditch without taking the cow out of the ditch, right? And most of them, that's what really happened. Most of them spend time discussing how that cow should have never been in the ditch itself without bothering to first take it out of the ditch. We saw this as an exercise that helped everybody in support, in sales, in engineering to decide what is the most critical thing that needs to happen. If there is a problem, if there is a unusual activity on servers, we fear somebody is hacking, we don't discuss how he could be hacking this, right? You need to go and first figure out what's going on and try and address that before anything else can be done. And so that was cow in the ditch. So whenever we were discussing things, we would ask them to frame the problem and get the cow out of the ditch first. So if somebody came running around saying, oh, that has happened, we said, okay, great, but is the cow out of the ditch or is it still in the ditch? And if the cow is still in the ditch, please go back, get her out of the ditch and then come back, and we'll definitely discuss on how this can be prevented. But then the next step was obviously to fill the ditch, so nothing goes back into the ditch, and then probably start spending time discussing.
Most popular topic around the ditch is how that cow went into the ditch and who is to be blamed for that. So those are
it's more interesting.
Yeah. But at the same time, did you also use any quality or thinking techniques like 5 whys, or let's say popular techniques like say Ichikawa diagram, fishbone diagram, root cause analysis? Do you also use all such tools to complement this framework?
We tried that. So to be very honest, what happened was like fishbone structure and others, we've tried a lot of these things. in that meeting it works. Everybody kind of contributes, but they don't adopt it eventually, to be very honest. When a real problem happens, somehow fishbone probably is the last thing on anybody's mind. So this is eventually you're getting to that only. You're doing a root cause, you're trying to find out the problem, fix it. But is the cow in the dish became sort of a interesting gimmicky thing that we would say for somebody to get his focus back onto the problem at hand and not digress into the more shiny thing of why, what.
Right. Also, many times people say that, when you're looking at problem solving or things like that, a good idea is just to write down the points what you have, right? Because many times it is basic, but people often miss because they keep all their analysis or things in their mind. And even in meetings, they'll just blurt out what comes to their mind top, right? But possibly they have done some deep thinking and point number fifth was the most important point, which they missed in the meeting. And typically in meetings, many inputs or many such points kind of trigger other reactions or other emotions. So it's better you to write down what you have. So just like I think in Amazon, they have this whole structure wherein, before meetings, you're supposed to circulate a detailed note. And in the meeting, we just discuss on the notes, assuming everyone has read it. So that's the way of, structured thinking. Excellent.
I'm smiling because initial days, Rishi and I used to always carry a diary to the room. Then it happened as if like we are the meeting note bearers of this particular meeting, and people would just walk in. So then we started telling, so how will you remember this? Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we have like our own diaries here.
Yeah. So in fact, in our team meetings, I say that if it is not noted down, if it's not there in team call notes, it's not there. Because let's say, there's no way in hell you will know that, 6 months back, what did a customer tell you? And what were the kind of internal discussions and what was the things you won't know. But
So it was very interesting. So we started telling people like go back. We're not starting the meeting until everybody has a book and a pen. Initially we gave some books and pens free from like Lero, but make sure you have a book in hand. And then slowly it becomes such a phenomenal culture now that so I remember when the Varrock acquisition happened and we started sitting with Varrock team, and one of the managers said, okay, come, let's go for a meeting. And so we naturally picked up our diary and started going, and 4 people started going in the opposite direction. They said, why are they going that side? I said, they are probably going to get their diaries. I said, like, short meeting a diary kyun chahiye? I said, no, without diary hamara meeting hi chalo nahi hoga. They all 4 went back, took their diaries, came back.
That's good.
The thing I remember it. So we were happy that it had become ingrained now, like taking notes and then following up on those notes became super ingrained.
Yeah. And also at the same time, it's important to note that it doesn't come across like bureaucracy, but it's to help the individual team members, right? Because it's not that you're submitting it to a higher authority. It is for your reference. Right?
Correct.
Because 6 months down the line, you won't know, right? If you want to say, there was a customer opportunity that went cold, and suddenly out of the blue, the customer is back again. Now, what are you going to do, right? And one way is people say, use CRM or put it that. But I personally am a big believer in using a pen and paper. Nothing beats that. You put that transcribe, and then you can later on transcribe it in whatever you want to do. But nothing beats a good old pen and pencil.
So what you said, it can't be forced. In Pomodoro case, we started using Pomodoro, and then somebody came up with an idea that let's use a flag to indicate that I am in the Pomo. So then a group prepared those flags and simple ones. But then
toothpick of the flag.
With a toothpick and a thing. And then you put it on your laptop so that no one will disturb you, no one will talk to you, and you are in your Pomo.
That happened when we went to Barbecue Nation to call the waiter have to make the flag up. So let's do this for Pomodoro. So
that's
those Barbecue Nation flags to show how this
is. Excellent. So what are the other tips which you would like to share?
We can go to the next one. We call it WHDL. Odd acronym. It stands for when it's complete, how does it look like? Long one. So basically we have learned from Olympic athletes that playing and winning the game is as much mental as physical. And for last 30-40 years, athletes have been using imagery to visualize the process of performing and the experience of winning. We tried to adopt that in a way that you, before doing anything, you first sit quietly and vividly imagine time in the future when the current work is complete in all respects. And when it is complete, how does it look, feel, taste like to everyone involved in that project? So when it's complete, how does it look like? Currently, there is nothing. But when it's complete, then everyone has this experience. If it's on a software system, then what are the screens like? How A role will access it, how B role will address it, and so on. So if that is vividly done, then we basically know exactly what success looks like, and we can strive to reach that. So
Great.
just to quote David Allen, he says there are only two problems in life. One is we don't know what we want, and the second is we don't know how to achieve what we want. So to get to what we want, there is Witchdil, and to achieve what we want, there is Pomodoro. So that has been the two sides of the story, which
Right. This is very fascinating, because my personal tip is, along with this, also visualize the negative aspects. That assuming this does not happen, try to visualize the emotions which you will get. Right? That, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Because there are two basic motivations for humans, right? One is the carrot and stick. Carrot is visualizing what are the good things, what would happen, and the stick is, oh, if I don't do this, and this is what the negative effects. That also is a very great thing. So let's come to the final tip. What do you have to share?
So just to add, sorry, to that Witchdil thing, because it manifests into different things, right? From an engineering standpoint, it would manifest into wireframes and balsamics. With account engagements, it would manifest as a definition of done. A lot of times when two enterprises are working together, there are a lot of meetings happening, but nobody somehow sits and writes down what does it mean to complete this integration. What has to happen if this integration has to be marked as done? And nobody wants to put a finger on it somehow, and we force that. We say, no, if these two independent systems are now going to be integrated, let's talk about 5 things that they should do, which if they do, we will mark it as definition of done. Similarly, when we are doing any kind of demos or something, we used to call it a script. We used to force people to write down everything, like right from good morning, I'm going to talk this, and then start writing down the exact 5 features that you're going to demonstrate today. Yeah. And that would become the underlying premises for everybody to work around. Otherwise, what would happen is somebody would come and say, well, why not show this to the customer? And you're like, no, 1 sec, we already agreed to the script, right? And maybe if there's enough time, we don't mind editing the script, but it has to be an agreement that we are editing the script. It can't happen one day before the demo. This might make it more interesting, and sure, and we'll make it interesting for the next customer. But now we are not doing any change, because usually that small thing, while interesting, is not going to add a huge marginal value to that demo script. The integration has to work, the script has to go through, and that is where the focus has to be. And that's how Witchdil forces people through this definition of dones, through these scripts, through these wireframes, to stay focused on the path.
Similar to we had this production line in which we wanted to design an efficient way to assemble the hardware product that we had, and that we didn't go to the production room. We just sat in a meeting room and vividly imagined how it will look like. Where will the boxes be? What colors of the boxes for different material and resources? How people will approach to that line, and what A will do, what B will do. That all was just thought as a mental exercise before actually trying to do anything into the production line.
She must have seen the movie McDonald's, and it has got this baseball code where Ray, the original founders of McDonald's, and not Ray, but the other two, actually designed the whole kitchen on a baseball court, and everybody's, mono acting, take a burger, wrap it, give, and everything. That is Witchdil. That somebody was seeing, observing the whole thing to happen. And that is super critical, right? And I think finally we move on to the last thing is anti-fragility. You explain better than me.
So Anti-Fragility is a well-known book by Nicholas Nassim Taleb, who has also given us a theory around black swan and other interesting things. So Anti-Fragility means a system becomes stronger and better, order of magnitude better, only after failing, and often failing badly. Unless the system doesn't fail, it doesn't get better. And normally we are afraid of failing, and this is again a cliche thing that you fail first kind of thing. But from engineering side, the experience with scaling has been most about failing. So to scale the software to serve million users doesn't happen on first day. You start with 100 and fail. Then you identify the weakest link and make it stronger. And then you start failing at 1,000 and maybe then 10,000. That way you increase order of magnitude only after failing at intervals in between. And I mean, from engineering, that's one experience.
Everywhere, right? Yeah, when we were trying to do production also at a certain point it failed and then we went and reinvested. When you're doing customer success or customer support, it fails. So thing is, it's nice and very cliche to say it's okay to fail, but do really organizations adopt that? Do they really accept failure is a question, and most don't. None actually do, right? They don't want to fail. It's become more of a thing. Oh, it's okay to fail. We'll learn from our failures. But really, I mean, if you really, so it was so difficult. If you would tell a customer that we'll give you a product and this will fail after you reach X, that wasn't a sales pitch anybody wanted to even hear. Right? So what do you mean it will fail? It will never fail, and then okay, then this is a good product. But at least internally, as an organization, you have to be cognizant that it's a fair balance between how much you can put to make a system more and more fail-proof, and yet someday it is going to fail. So you can't. You have to accept it. You have to be understanding of the nature of things, right?
So every failure makes you learn. So not that, but the sales pitch we tried was we are better because we have failed so many times.
I don't know if it worked. Somebody who's gone through the process understood it, by the way. So that was the whole thing. So somebody who's actually built a system, who has scaled a system, he understands that it is impossible to visualize for a billion, vehicles. You will start off with 100 million, and you will get there, and it is fine. But
also, also I think that in the anti-fragility book, it's also a philosophy which has to be imbibed, right? Because in the book, what it talks about is resilience, wherein you make system tough that they're able to kind of withstand shocks, right? And then you have got a status quo thing which are indifferent to external stimulus. And third is which will improve over time, right? As they say, what does not kill me will only make me stronger. So in a crazy world we live in, I think anti-fragility will have much more positive outcomes, right? Because you've already factored in things. And also one more observation, right? In all of these 4 tips which you have mentioned, there is also some sense of inbuilt scenario planning, if I may add the word, from what I could gather. That is, okay, if this happens, then you have got these 3 options. If this 3 fails, these are the 3 things. And also as the kind of teams kind of go through this rigor, there is an inbuilt knowledge management system which kind of creates, right, wherein people know what to expect and what are the only challenge is, for example, you've got a team, let's say 20, 50, all of them are doing this and fantastic. The whole thing is moving very smoothly. And now we've got employee attrition, right? Some key performance move out, right? And then new folks come in, you need to retrain them, etc. So did you have some formal knowledge management system where, everything gets documented and, you use that?
We definitely did try knowledge management. We did systems-based knowledge management. So we did write a lot of articles. She wrote some, I wrote some. We tried 4 different tools by now: SharePoint, Wiki, and everything. To be very honest, what happens is at the end of the day, how you treat when the new person joins your team and how you inculcate him to your culture and processes is far more critical than writing everything onto a website and hoping he will read. Because see, personally, when you're joining a new team, first there is anxiety, which team have you joined? There's enough fear, you don't know what's going to happen. And then you are trying to pick up on things because as a startup, you wanted that person probably a month back. And finally you managed to get him now, right? So you probably put him first to the frontiers rather than read anything and come up to speed. So that's the honest way, at least in the startup, or how somebody comes on board. So then how do you counter that? Couple of things, at least on this whole anti-fragility thing. I tend to get more angrier than Rishi is the calmer one. I'm the more angrier one between the two of us. But I don't remember a single incident when I got angry if something went wrong. I just don't get angry at all if something goes wrong. For me, it is like somebody is trying something, and I find it fascinating that this didn't work, and we just move on. And I think a couple of times people see this happening from the founders. They're absolutely okay with mistakes happening. There is a different kind of confidence. The fear usually is that people might get lax, they might start. That is not true. In our opinion, it is not true. Everybody wants to put his best foot forward. Everybody wants to do a great job. I don't think everybody comes with an intention in the morning to office to let me see how I can screw this up. Nobody comes with that intention.
Got it.
And about this documented knowledge-based system, I have worked at earlier companies where any question used to get answers with a wiki link, and everything was there in the wiki, internal wiki. Somehow, in the new generation or in the new way culture, people don't read a lot. They just want very small attention span, where lot of things cannot be done through reading. That has been some learning over last 3, 4, 5.
Maybe an AI bot can help.
Somebody,
yeah.
So we tried with TSVs and so 30-second videos. So we tried to make 30-second
videos. Okay.
You cannot really go. So make short videos and try to.
So actually, like the ChatGPT, that's what is happening today. If I want to search for a quick question on an Excel formula, I am more comfortable asking ChatGPT to tell me the formula versus doing Google, then going to the right article, reading that article, and finding the answer. Right? So I just get the formula that I can literally copy and put into my Excel sheet and be done with it. Right?
Got it.
So the bot probably is the right answer towards getting there.
Yeah. Great. Fascinating. This has been an excellent conversation. And I think, as you mentioned, you are working with a few select companies. And I'm sure, if more companies who kind of gets inspired to, do something after listening to the podcast, I'll definitely share that links with you. Maybe you can share a specific, any documents or any links. I'll put it in the show call notes. So thanks again, Sagar and Hrishikesh. This gives a great perspective. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. Do subscribe, share, and like this podcast. Consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating if you like the content. Bye for now. Talk to you soon.